Welcome back, folks, to #AskGSM, the weekly Money Mailbag video, where I answer your questions on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter right here in this video form. Lots going on right now. We had WWE Week coming up this week on the USA Network, TLC last night, TakeOver last Thursday, which I thought was amazing. I've watched to finish that show like at least a million times by that point. Christmas in only 10 days, so a lot of going on right now. A lot of questions from you guys to answer in this week's video. So kicking it off, we got Justin G from Facebook. His first question was, TNA keeps on hosting these one-night-only pay-per-views. Do you think the term one-night-only is getting way overused due to the fact they use one-night-only for the title for all of their pay-per-views now? Well, yeah, I do. They've been doing this one-night-only thing for about a year and a half now. For those unfamiliar, it's one of those pay-per-views they put out once a month on the months that they don't have pay-per-views, which is basically almost every single month now since they only have like 3 pay-per-views now. They just recently had one. Like, coincidence that you mentioned that, because I just got finished watching this month's Victory Road 2014. Would not recommend you watching. It was not a good show whatsoever. I just watched them so I can review them for next year wrestling. But kind of stemming off of that, not only do they have to change the name of those pay-per-views, they have to fucking scrap those things altogether. I don't know how much money they're making off of them. I can't imagine it's much. People don't buy their pay-per-views, much less these mini ones, like on the months they don't have Slammiversary or Lockdown or Bound for Glory. I can't imagine they're making too much money off these things. They're so fucking pointless. The matches sometimes are good. Some of these events have been decent, but most of them have been mediocre as all hell. The commentary sucks. The matches are not good. So what's the fucking point? They filmed them out of the fucking Impact Zone. The crowd is terrible. So I just don't see any point in hosting these shows. They're just not good. I mean, like I said before, I watched them to review them, so I'm not going to say I purchased them. I just find them online somewhere. I don't waste my money on these shows. But they just need to get rid of them. They're such a waste of time. Put that money towards something a little bit more worth it, I guess, meaningful, that you're actually going to get something out of. These one-night-only shows are so fucking pointless. So not only do they need to scrap the name, but just the entire concept itself, because it's not serving any purpose whatsoever right now, and I think that money could be used towards something better as opposed to these monthly pay-per-views that just have no meaning behind them whatsoever. Justin's second question was, do you think we are going to see? Do you think we have yet to see what Baron Corbin is really all about due to the fact that his matches last roughly around 35 to 40 seconds? I do. I do think that Baron Corbin is capable of more. We have yet to see his full potential. I don't think that they're using this time, like the 30-second, 15-second matches at sometimes, to hide his weaknesses. I don't think he's a very limited character like Goldberg. He was limited. I'm not going to say he was bad. Goldberg was great. He got the fans behind him and stuff like that. I'm not putting Baron Corbin and Goldberg on the same level, but one of the reasons why Goldberg's matches were so short in the early part of his career in WCW was that he wasn't really capable of having a longer match. Like, I watched his match with Triple H from Survivor Series, I think maybe '03 or '02. I think it was '03. It was not a good match. It was like 50 minutes long. I mean, he just doesn't thrive in longer matches. I don't know if the same thing can be said for Baron Corbin. The guy's got a great mystique about him, but the guy's been doing the same thing for 3 months now. Like, I was okay with it for the first few weeks, the first month maybe, but it's been 3 months already, and we already get the same thing from him. And I'm glad they're kind of already building on a feud between him and Bull Dempsey. Both guys need wins right now, so I don't know how much a feud between them is really going to benefit. But it's going to get people excited for an eventual encounter between the two. So I'm glad they're building that up the right way. They didn't throw it away as like a random match on the last special. So I'm glad they're building towards that nicely and properly. But yeah, I do agree with you that we have yet to see what Baron Corbin is truly all about. Third question was, do you think due to the fact that being 34 years of age, that Tyson Kidd will never get a big push? It's not even due to the fact that he's 34 years. I mean, I guess it is kind of ironic calling a guy named Tyson Kidd that he is 34 years old. Tyson Kidd, 34, whatever. I don't think it's due to his age that he'll never get a big push. I just can't see Tyson Kidd being like a WWE champion. I mean, it kind of depends on what you mean by big push. Like, I'm a huge Tyson Kidd fan. I think he's doing some of the best work of his career this year alone as a heel in NXT and on the main roster as well. I think the stuff with Natalya is hilarious. Hopefully, I think by big push, they give him maybe a mid-card title run with either the Intercontinental or United States Championships. I think him versus Tyson Kidd. Tyson Kidd versus Dolph Ziggler. Now that Ziggler is the new Intercontinental Champion, They could have a great series of matches over that title, so I hope we get that at some point. But still, though, I think, yeah, Tyson Kidd, his age isn't really a factor. It's more due to the fact that he just can't really get beyond a certain level. Like, same thing with Adrian Neville, not to rhyme here, but I do think, like, Adrian Neville will never be a world champion in WWE. He can be a great mid-carder like Tyson Kidd. Tyson Kidd has been marginalized for the better part of his WWE career over the last 5 years, and he hasn't been getting his big break until just recently. But by big push, I don't know if that constitutes as like a world title run. I don't see that. But I can see Tyson Kidd as like maybe a mid card, maybe upper mid card level guy. I think that's probably the best spot for him. I don't think fucking facing Adam Rose every single week is going to do him any justice. But I do think he has been getting the better, a good push. I mean, it's better than not being on TV at all, which was happening with him the last year. So I'm glad he's finally getting on TV. He's finally getting wins, and he means something. His next question was, the WWE has been sweeping the indies of talent with the addition of Prince Devitt, Kevin Steen, and Kenta. Do you think the WWE will target Alex Shelley next, or who do you think the WWE should go after next? Should they go after Alex Shelley next to answer the first part of your question? I was always a fan of Alex Shelley, not so much as a singles guy. I really liked him in Motor City Machine Guns, obviously. If WWE can get them, that'd be amazing. Obviously, they would not be named Motor City Machine Guns. That wouldn't fit in with the PG product, whatever. But still, though, at their peak, for the years that those guys were together, from I don't know when they started, but from the time that they split up in maybe 2012, they were one of the best tag teams, not only in TNA, but in the world, in my opinion. I thought Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin were amazing. Chris Sabin on his own was pretty good, but again, he was never going to get beyond a certain level. And I know he was a former world heavyweight champion, but that reign lasted like all of a month. It was a fluke victory, didn't mean anything, and the guy, like, to put in perspective how much that title reign meant to him, or meant to TNA. A year later, not even a year removed from when the guy won the World Heavyweight Championship, he was gone from the company. They didn't re-sign him, so I guess they went in a different direction. They had nothing left for him, which I think is ridiculous. He was a great talent. So I don't see them targeting Alex Shelley on his own. He can be maybe like a new Evan Bourne kind of character, but I think he's better than that because Evan Bourne was never treated with the right respect either. I mean, I know he got himself suspended, but I think he could have gotten beyond a certain level as well as Evan Bourne. But still, though, I think Alex Shelley could fit that role if they brought him in by himself, but I think the best course of action would be to bring in both Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin as a unit. I think those two could add a hell of a lot to the current tag team division. And just think of the matches they could have with the fucking Usos. That'd be amazing. So, yeah, I don't really have any interest in Alex Shelley coming to WWE on his own. I don't think they'll sign him on his own. I think the real money in Alex Shelley is when he's with Chris Sabin as the Motor City Machine Guns. If they have to rename him, fine. But I'd be all for them being added to the tag team division currently in WWE. But who do I think they should go after next is the second part of your question. And I've been contemplating this as of late for the last couple of weeks. AJ Styles would be an amazing pickup, and I know, like at this point, like if you asked me maybe a couple of months ago, earlier this year, I didn't see them signing him. According to AJ, they have yet to even contact him, which is really mind-boggling to me. And I know he's been branded as like the face of TNA, a TNA guy, but who fucking cares? No one cares. The guy's a great in-ring talent. He's having the best matches of his career right now, and over in Japan and Ring of Honor and elsewhere in the Indies. But that being said, though, I think AJ Styles would be a great fit for WWE. Would they utilize him correctly? I mean, that remains to be seen. But still, though, I think he could have a very good run in WWE. He even said himself in past interviews that he'd be more than willing to go down to NXT if need be. I mean, guys like Devitt, a Tommy, a Kenta, otherwise Kevin Steen, Owens, whatever. Those guys do not need NXT. They could be on the main roster tomorrow, but I'm not going against the idea of them going to NXT because right now NXT is on fucking fire, and them going down there I think is awesome. But imagine if AJ Styles was in there with them, and I know he's closing in on 40 years old. I think he may be like 35, 36, 37, whatever. But I think WWE would be dumb if they didn't even make an attempt to sign AJ. I think he could be a great signing for WWE. And, I mean, the age isn't really a factor. I mean, I thought it was earlier this year, but, I mean, guys like Devitt and Kenta are 30 years older, I think, above the age of 30. Same thing with Kevin Steen, I believe, as well. So that's not really an excuse. I don't know why they wouldn't sign him, probably, like I said before, because he's labeled as a TNA guy. But I really don't think that's any excuse. I think you should at least try to get him in WWE. If he doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But at least try to get him in NXT. I think AJ Styles could be amazing in WWE. World Championship material, I think he's worthy of it. Were they pushing towards that level? Probably not. but it'd still be great to see him in WWE mixing it up with the likes of Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins and even John Cena. But yeah, that's what I got to say to that. His next question: Vince McMahon has said that the talent pool with the main roster is very shallow. Why don't you think that they are not calling up guys like Adrian Neville or Sami Zayn before winning the belt? And according to Sami Zayn, he says. But that's a good question. The roster right now, I would agree, is definitely shallow. We have a lot of great in-ring talent like Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns is coming back, Daniel Bryan should be back at some point, Bad News Barrett, we've got John Cena, Randy Orton should be coming back. So that should be improving over time. I mean, it was definitely a lot worse a couple of months ago when in the same, every single fucking week you would get Cena and Orton in the main event, Seth Rollins and John Cena, Dean Ambrose and Randy Orton, like the same 4 or 5 people came in there as well. Like, it was getting ridiculous going into Hell in a Cell, but at least in the last couple of months, they've improved upon that by pushing Eric Rowan and Ryback back to not a main event level, but an upper mid card. Luke Harper, Dolph Ziggler. So they've done a good job of switching it up a little bit when it comes to the main event of Raw and pay-per-views. We got Ambrose and Wyatt in the main event of TLC last night, which I thought was great. They had no reason doing that either because John Cena went over in his match and Wyatt won his. So they could have easily switched those two around, but I was very glad they didn't. That said, though, why aren't they calling up NXT talent right now? Because obviously, in my opinion anyway, they wouldn't have anything for them. It's like late December, and I know they're calling up the Ascension pretty soon, but I wouldn't imagine they wouldn't be calling them up. The vignettes, I imagine, are going to be going on for the next couple of weeks. But that's different because it's a tag team division. As a singles guy right now, you're not going to get the big push that you're deserving of with guys like Triple H and Sting and Brock Lesnar. All those guys coming back for WrestleMania season. These guys are not going to get the push that they deserve. I think Adrian Neville will get to the main roster before Sami Zayn, if only because he just lost a title. There's not much for him to do in NXT right now. So after he, gets his rematch and do whatever else he needs to do in NXT, I could see him and or Sami Zayn being called up the night after WrestleMania. I've been saying that for months now, but I think that could be a perfect fit for either of those guys, especially Sami Zayn with the Olay chants, the post-WrestleMania crowd. That could be fantastic. But still, though, I think they're not calling them up right now because they just don't have anything for them, which I think is for the better. I'd rather see them wait it out and call them up at a time when they actually have something for them, as opposed to them being called up right now ASAP and then just main event or superstars every week. Like, that's a waste of their talent. Like Bo Dallas and Adam Rose are doing right now. Like, it's a complete waste. I'm not saying Bo Dallas is the next world champion, but they had something with him. They squashed it when they ruined the undefeated streak. I digress, but still, though, probably in the next couple of months after WrestleMania season runs its course, you could see these guys in the main roster. We got a few more questions like that coming up, but I'll get to that in a minute. But his fifth and final question, or maybe sixth and final question, I don't know. Watching your pay-per-view reviews on your YouTube channel, check them out, cheap plug. He wrote that I did. I thought that was hilarious. Do you plan on reviewing WCW and ECW pay-per-views? So I've been thinking about this for a while, probably. Maybe not on the YouTube channel itself, because I'm going into WrestleMania season. I'm currently planning on reviewing every single WrestleMania installment, which is going to be crazy. But I'm going to try to do it anyway. I think it's going to be cool. So that being said, I don't really have much time. And same thing with Royal Rumble. Not every installment, but most installments. I just don't have time to watch the WCW and ECW pay-per-views to review them on the channel, because as it is right now, I'm putting up reviews of these past WWE pay-per-views 3 times a week. And then every other day of the week, I'm putting up content for Wrestle Rant Radio, my hashtag SCSM videos, the video blogs, and everything else. So I just don't have any time to upload the WCW and ECW reviews, pay-per-views on the WWE Network. But what I've been thinking about is watching those pay-per-views, and instead of giving in a video review of them like I do for the WWE shows, I'll write a review of those shows for Next Era Wrestling, and I'll put them on my website. So I might be doing that going into the new year. Just keep an eye out for that. I have been thinking about that because I do want to get my fill of WCW and ECW pay-per-views, not just limit myself to the WWE pay-per-view. So keep an eye out for that. Probably not here on the channel, but probably exclusive to the website Next Era Wrestling. I'll probably be talking about WCW and ECW pay-per-views. So Andre G, his question was, what are your thoughts on Mike Knox's career? If we're talking about WWE here, it was very mediocre. I'm not saying he could have been a world champion. I know I've been saying that like a million times in this video. But he was pushed for a while. Like in ECW, he was doing well for himself before he got drafted to Raw. When he went to Raw, remember, he was feuding with like Rey Mysterio, Evan Bourne, like some top tier guys. He was in the fucking World Heavyweight Championship Elimination Chamber, like I think in 2009. Like he was receiving a pretty big push for a while. So I think they could have done more with him. I think he could have been like the next big guy, kind of. I didn't think he was amazing, but I do think they could have done more with him. Like when they drafted him to SmackDown, I don't know if it was that same year. It might have been the following year. I can't remember. But they just didn't do anything with him before they released him in 2010. So I think they could have done a lot more with the guy. They pushed him for a while, then they just lost interest after a while for some reason. But still, I think it was disappointing. And in TNA, he's formed the Menagerie. I mean, I guess they're doing better with him in TNA, but I just have no interest in the Menagerie whatsoever. I just do not care for it. The guy's a great wrestler. I mean, he's shown in matches with like guys like Austin Aries over in TNA. The guy's a very good in-ring athlete, but the whole clown gimmick I just doesn't do anything for me personally. So his next question was, do you think Curtis Axel should change his gimmick? Well, the problem with that is he doesn't currently have a gimmick. I mean, Curtis Axel is as bland as it gets. I talked about him in my last Push to Punish article on Bleacher Report. If you want to go back and check it out, plug. But the guy's a great in-ring athlete, just with zero charisma. And if a pairing with Paul Heyman couldn't do any good for him, then I don't know what will. That's the problem. I mean, I know he's like a third-generation wrestler. He's a great wrestler, but they just don't have anything for him, and I can't blame them. I mean, maybe they could be doing something else with him right now, but the whole tag team with Ryback I hated because those guys just had zero chemistry. And when they finally started to get some personality, they broke up, which is probably for the better because I like Ryback on his own anyway. But I digress. So they need to give him a gimmick before they can change his gimmick. But he just needs like a new look. The guys look the same. You take a side-by-side photo comparison between him right now in 2014 to when he debuted in WWE in 2010. There's no fucking difference. He's got the same haircut, the same tights, the same everything. Like, change up the look a little bit or something. Grow your hair out. Do something to differentiate yourself from when you were fucking Michael McGillicuddy 4 years ago. Because people see him as a loser. And I talked about this in my Push to Punish article, but people were so used to seeing him as a loser for so long as Michael McGillicuddy that when they finally made him Curtis Axel, there was really no chance. Because you're like, oh, this guy's a loser. Why should I care about him? And when they finally started to push him as something meaningful, I mean, he got somewhat of a push, and some people started to get behind him, but they squashed it when he lost to CM Punk every single week, and the guy was directionless as Intercontinental Champion for the latter half of 2013, and now he's been on Superstars every week. So it sucks for him. I think he's capable of much more, but it is what it is, and I can't really blame creative because I mean they try to do all they could with the guy. I mean I do blame them for feeding him to CM Punk every week last summer, but aside from that, the guy, I mean you can't teach charisma. If he doesn't have charisma, there's nothing you can do. You pair him with a tag team guy, you pair him with a manager, but they tried both those things and they failed. So I mean there's really nothing you can do at this point, in my opinion. Do you see Seth Rollins cashing in at WrestleMania? So this has been a very popular topic. I've got a lot of people saying this, and let me differentiate here. I would love to see it. Personally, I would love to see Roman Reigns win the belt, and then Seth Rollins cash in. What do I think is going to happen? That's what I think. That's what I want to see happen. What probably will happen, though, is that Roman Reigns will win the belt. He's going to win the Royal Rumble, win the belt. It's predictable as all hell, but I mean, I don't really have a huge problem with it. I mean, I would hate it like in 2013 or last year when Batista won it. Those guys that won the Rumble before, they're already established guys. They don't need the Rumble win. Roman Reigns kind of does. He's an up-and-coming guy. So I really I don't have as big of a problem as I did with Cena and Batista in recent years. But people are saying that, Rollins will cash in right after Roman Reigns wins. But here's the thing, though. I cannot recall of one WrestleMania in the last 30 years that a heel has won and closed the show. Only on 2 different occasions can I remember a heel winning, as in Triple H, I think, at WrestleMania 2000, and The Miz, most recently at WrestleMania 27. Yes, both guys were successful in retaining their WWE titles in the main event of WrestleMania, but both were laid out, coincidentally enough, by The Rock afterwards, and a babyface closed the show. I cannot recall one WrestleMania where a heel closed the show. Maybe victorious, sure, but not closing the show as in they retain their title, the show is over. Usually a babyface would lay them out, close the show by celebrating with the crowd and sending them home happy. And I know RJ and I talked about this on Wrestle Rant Radio last week, and I know SummerSlam's like the equivalent to WrestleMania, but there are so many more eyes in WrestleMania. It's their biggest show of the year. SummerSlam comes close, but nothing tops WrestleMania. They always end the show on a happy note, regardless of whether the heel wins or not. So I just can't see Rollins I can't see Reigns winning the title, then Rollins cashing in right afterwards. In the main event anyway. And if it's not the main event, then maybe. But I have a pretty good feeling that it probably will be. But still though, like you could have Roman Reigns win, have his big moment at WrestleMania, and then have Rollins cash in the next night. I think that could be great because I think Roman Reigns in chase mode against Seth Rollins is there's much more money in that than Rollins in chase mode and Reigns as the champion. I think that dynamic is a lot less more entertaining than the dynamic of Rollins being champion and Reigns being in chase mode. So I'd rather see that, have Rollins cash in the next night like Dolph Ziggler style from 2013, the big pop from the post WrestleMania crowd. So I mean, I think it would be cool because that the Money in the Bank concept for the last 10 years, believe it or not, no one has ever cashed in at WrestleMania. I think Rollins could be the first one, but like I said before, I just don't see it happening because a heel has never closed the show. His next question was, do you see Naomi winning the Divas Championship by WrestleMania? I guess so. I mean, the current champion is Nikki Bella. AJ was unsuccessful in winning back the belt last night at TLC. Run that for a while with Nikki Bella being with her being the champion. I think there was a rule in place at one point that no star from Total Divas can win the championship, but Stephanie McMahon went on the record and said that's not true. So I don't know really what to believe, but regardless, Naomi apparently is no longer a part of the Total Divas cast. So that shouldn't really apply to her anyway. So that being said, I would have absolutely no problem. If anything, I'd be all for that idea of Naomi winning the title. I think it's long overdue. She was probably set to win the title earlier this year before she got injured, and that kind of threw a wrench into the plans there. But yeah, I would absolutely be for Naomi winning that Divas Championship. I think she's ready from a character standpoint as an in-ring wrestler. I think she's improved a lot. Just change the music, and I think it's okay. Like, it screams Brodus Clay. It screams Funkadactyl. Give her own theme music, and I'd be all for her winning the Divas Championship by WrestleMania. Is it likely? Yeah, I think it's likely. I mean, we have 3 or 4 months until WrestleMania. Nikki Bella won the title last month at Survivor Series, so give her another month or two as champion. Maybe she drops it to Naomi either at WrestleMania itself or at Fastlane and the month before. So yeah, I could see that being a possibility. At WeGaza487, his question was, have you ever noticed that some referees still count rope breaks and no disqualification matches? I have noticed that. Most notably, I mean, John at John Knapp 17 on Twitter and I, when we were watching WrestleMania 26, the most comical moment when that happened was when Bruce Hart and the Vince McMahon Bret Hart no disqualification match was still counting. He was like the worst referee in history. It was so fucking funny. But and he's not an actual referee, so I don't blame him. But still, though, I do notice that. I think the referees still can count. Like when John Cena, I mean, it's weird because say John Cena has Seth Rollins in the STF and he grabs the rope. The referee can count to 5, but he doesn't necessarily have to break it or call for the DQ because it doesn't matter. So I guess what they do is that they still, make the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 count, but they don't have to break it. But then why would you make the count anyway if it doesn't mean anything? You know what I mean? Because if they're not going to get disqualified, I mean, it's really confusing. This is kind of messing with my brain a little bit here. But I don't know. I guess, maybe either they forget or whatever else. But I have noticed that. And, I mean, I guess they can count to 5. It doesn't really matter. But they don't have to enforce the rule that they have to break it because they can't be disqualified. Like, it doesn't matter. So that's a good question. I don't really know, to be honest with you. At Brad Bradar, his question was, now that the Ascension are main roster bound, do you think it will hurt them that the tag team division is mainly comedy tag teams? I don't think so. I mean, I think the bottom line here is that the Ascension has been main roster ready for, in my opinion, close to 2 years now. I think there was a point maybe 2 years ago they were supposed to come up, but Kenneth Cameron, a.k.a. Bram and TNA now, got himself arrested and later released from the company, so they had to repackage the whole tag team, threw in Victor in there. I think these guys could have been ready a year ago, much less 6 months ago, right after the Usos were still champions. So, that being said, it's not going to hurt the division. I think if anything, it's going to help them. They need more tag teams. I know we have the New Day and Golden Stardust, but it's not enough. It's not what the tag team division was in late 2012 or late 2013 when the Rhodes Brothers were tag team champions. Not Goldust and Stardust, the Rhodes Brothers. I like them 10 times more. But still, though, I think it's definitely going to add to the tag team division. They have done everything there is to do in NXT. I thought they were going to be called up right after the last TakeOver special in September. Didn't happen. They feuded with Tommy and Valor for a while. Now that they've lost to them, hopefully we can finally get them on the main roster by 2015. So, no, I don't think it's going to hurt them. If anything, it's only going to help the tag team division as a whole. I don't know if they'll win the titles right off the bat, but Personally, I'm a fan of the Ascension. I know a lot of people don't like them. They find them boring. I understand that. I see the complaints, but I like them. I think it's a cool gimmick, and it's very 80s-esque, and maybe it's because I'm old school. I mean, 80s-esque, T-shirt reference here, Ghostbusters. But I don't know. I like them. I was like, I'm not gonna say they're the next Legion of Doom or the next Demolition. But I think they're a good tag team in the ring. They can be a bit boring at times. You give them a good opponent, like they did it with the Tommy and Ballard last Takeover special last week, and I think they're gonna have a great match. So yeah, I think it's beneficial for both them and the tag team division as a whole in WWE. Next question. Even though it appears that WWE have backed out of it, do you think the WWE should do a 40-man Royal Rumble in 2015? Absolutely. I wrote an article about this on Bleacher Report earlier this year, and when the reports came out that a 40-man Rumble will be happening in the 2015 Royal Rumble, I mean, that was like, there were some reports that I guess it was confirmed at like the 10th anniversary of SmackDown, it might have been, or the 15th anniversary back in October. But plans changed. They went back to 30. So yeah, that being said, I would rather see a 40-man, if only because I know it's a long time. There are some legitimate gripes about against there being a 40-man Rumble. But I don't know about anyone else, but I love the 40-man concept back in 2011. Maybe it's because back then we had more roster depth, and I don't know, we were able to get some more surprises in guys like Booker T and Kevin Nash, and they're not taking away from people that deserve to be in the Rumble. Like this year, it was 30 people, and they wasted a few spots on like fucking El Torito, JBL. I mean, I love JBL, but for him to go in there for 2 seconds, like that was stupid and pointless. When a guy like Daniel Bryan or whoever else could have been in that matchup, like a Wade Barrett could have been in there instead. But whatever. Yeah, I would rather see a 40-man Rumble. It's already been confirmed that it's going to be 30 this year. But yeah, I've gone on the record before, both in articles and on Twitter and whatever else, saying that there should be a 40-man Royal Rumble. I'd much rather see that with more superstars getting a chance rather than risk it and bringing back, a former legend or two, which is cool, but I don't want to see them take away from the current main roster guys that do deserve a spot in the Rumble. At Daniel Cabeza 59, their question was, do you expect Daniel Bryan to be in the Royal Rumble? Speaking of such, I don't want to count on it. I'm not going to get my hopes up and say that he's going to be in it, he will be in it, and whatever else. I don't think so. I don't think he's due back for a while. At last word, he's not going to be due back until the summer, so he's going to be out for a full year and then some, which really, really sucks. But I would love to be surprised and think Daniel Bryan will come back at a later number 30 even, and then like a poetic justice kind of thing, win the Rumble that he should have won last year, and then get a shot against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Don't see that happening. Like, I don't want to see Daniel Bryan return in the Rumble and then have him lose. Like, that doesn't make much sense to me. So, and maybe they get their first feud out of it. Like, maybe Rollins comes in and eliminates him. Like, I think that could be an amazing feud for WrestleMania. But, no, I don't think it's going to be in the Royal Rumble. Would love to see it, just not counting on it, though. At SwagZio, their question was, do you think Baron Corbin has a chance in WWE? Kind of already covered this before, but I do think he has a chance in WWE. If they just have to give him longer matches, it's been 3 months since the guy debuted. They just have to give him more of a chance, longer matches, more feuds. And they are currently doing that with his feud with Bull Dempsey, which is great to see. But we're not going to really see what he's all about until he gets a longer match. But I do think he has potential to be some kind of, this mysterious figure, a force to be reckoned with in WWE and NXT, whatever. But yeah, I do think he has a chance in WWE. At Cody Collier 12, their question was, what is your favorite Jeff Hardy match when he was in WWE? So when I started watching in April of 2008 to when he left in late 09, I mean, there wasn't many times where, I mean, he had a lot of great matches, and I'll get to that in a second, but, I mean, if I watched earlier, I probably would have said the TLC match, or his matches with, whoever else in the 2000s, maybe with Johnny Nitro, or whoever. But, I mean, I have seen a lot of great matches, going back and watching stuff on the WWE Network and whatever else, like the match with Triple H, which happened when I was a fan, but I didn't watch the match live. But, still, though, in the time that I was a fan for, like, obviously I would have to say, like, the TLC matches and the ladder matches, whatever else, his match with The Undertaker. But if I'm talking from a point from when I was the fan from early 08 to late 09 from when he left the company, 3 matches come to mind. One, his match with Matt Hardy. These are all from 09, by the way. His match with Matt Hardy from WrestleMania 25, I thought was very underrated. I thought that was a great match. The feud, not so much, but I thought that match was awesome. Also, their I Quit match I thought was good, but their best match, in my opinion, was the No DQ match at WrestleMania 25. His match with Punk, the TLC match from SummerSlam of that year, I thought was stellar. One of the breakout performances for both Punk and Hardy. The Swanton through the commentating table, Punk winning clean, Taker coming back. Everything about that match I thought was awesome. So that match, his match with Edge, the ladder match from one night stand or Extreme Rules that year in 2009 for the World Heavyweight title when he won the championship and Punk cashed in right afterwards. Did not watch that live, but I did watch it on the WWE Network a couple of months ago in preparation for Extreme Rules. But I thought that was a great match. But of those three, I would probably have to go with the Punk one. I do own SummerSlam from that year on DVD, and I've watched it like a million times, so maybe that kind of sways my opinion a little bit. But I thought that was a great match and a great win for Punk, and a great match for Jeff Hardy too on his one of those final matches on his way out. So I thought there's no better way to go out than an amazing match with CM Punk. So I would probably have to go with that one. Next question comes from @Raymond_Marceau, RJ from Wrestle Rant Radio. This question was, would you want to see some NXT guys like a Sami Zayn, Hideo Itami, Kevin Owens be in the Royal Rumble over lower mid-carders? I would like to think so. Like I said before, I don't want to see a guy like a Sami Zayn or an Adrian Neville debut in the Rumble, and then because like I said before, my fantasy booking is that one or both of those guys, Adrian Neville or Sami Zayn, debut the night after WrestleMania, and it's not completely out of the question either. Because remember, the night after WrestleMania this year, we got the debut of Paige, and technically, I mean, he's a prime example. Rusev debuted in the Royal Rumble match last year and didn't technically make his debut on WWE TV until the night after WrestleMania. We also got vignettes for Bo Dallas and Adam Rose that night, so they were really pushing the future on that night's show, which I think is awesome. But yeah, I would absolutely love to see. Like, I would much rather see like a one-off appearance from a Sami Zayn rather than like a fucking I don't know, like an El Torito, like you said, like Los Matadores. I would much rather see Sami Zayn or Neville in there. You mentioned Tommy, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor. I do think they'll be up at some point. Like you said, we talked about this last week on the show. I do think those guys will be up on the main roster before long because they're all ready. Like, they were ready before they even joined the company. That goes without saying. But I do think Zayn and especially Owens are going to be down in NXT for a while. And I know it's not completely out of the question for the NXT champion to be on the main roster, like Rollins when he debuted a part of the Shield at Survivor Series 2 years ago about. He was still the NXT champion. Granted, he dropped the title a month later, but still. Big E, right after he won the title from Seth Rollins, was on the main roster right after winning it and was champion for a good 5 or 6 months before finally dropping it. So it's not out of the question for these guys to be pulling double duty both in the main roster and NXT. So, but I do think Sami Zayn should get a great run out of that NXT Championship. Focus on NXT for right now. Maybe drop it to Owens around WrestleMania time, and then come up to the main roster because he's been ready for years now. That goes without saying. But still, though, I would love to see a Sami Zayn or a Neville, especially, be in the Royal Rumble. Kevin Owens and Tommy Balor are a little less likely because they've been NXT shorter, but they're also equally as ready as those other guys, Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville. But if I had to pick who should go up to the main roster first, Zayn or Neville, because those guys have been down in developmental longer, and I think it's only a matter of time before they're called up. Final question comes from @JeffStone1. His question was, now that Roman Reigns is back, can we assume that his beef with Seth Rollins will be the main storyline? I would assume so. Hopefully it's Roman Reigns and Seth and not Roman Reigns and fucking Big Show, as we saw last night at TLC. But it was Jeff. I got to give credit to Jeff. It was him last week on the show that asked me about Roman Reigns' return, and it was later that night he returned to the Slammy Awards. And I said when I answered his question last week, he could be back at TLC, and he was, making a surprise return at the event. One of the only sole highlights from that show, in my opinion. But still, I would have no problem with a Reigns and Rollins feud going into the Royal Rumble. They don't have to have a match at the pay-per-view itself, because I fully expect, it's already been confirmed that Roman will be in the match, in the Royal Rumble match. But maybe you could do a little mini feud between the two for right now, because obviously those two were feuding before Roman got hurt earlier this year. But you don't need to go full-blown into that feud. It can be the main storyline, because I know, well, the main storyline, obviously, is going to be Brock and Cena. That goes without saying. But I think Roman and Rollins can have a great second top-tier feud, right? Maybe under Ambrose and Wyatt, if that continues. We'll find out tonight. But still, though, I think that will be a top storyline. That could be a little mini feud you do. Like I said before, you don't need to go full-on into it, because it will be a feud over the World Heavyweight Championship at one point, in my opinion. Maybe right after WrestleMania, like they talked about before. So you don't need to give away the full first match between the two. I know they did technically on Raw a couple of months ago. But you don't need to give the full-on feud. You can save that for after WrestleMania. So that being said, folks, that's going to wrap up this week's video. Thanks for sending in the questions. If you want to send in a question, you can leave a comment here on the video. I'll be sure to include in next week's installment. You can tweet me on Twitter @WrestleRant with hashtag AskGSM, or even comment on my Facebook page, Graham Juice Matthews. Leave a comment on the wall itself, or a comment on the post that I usually put up on Sunday nights. So like I said before, folks, always appreciate you guys sending in the questions. I'll be back next week, only days before Christmas. Super excited for it. This is the last video of 2014 that I'll be filming here on campus. So it'll be a few more before the end of the year. But still, though, always appreciate you guys sending the questions. I'll catch you next week. Graham, Juice, and Matthews, and have an awesome week, guys.